In this video, we cross into Peru via the world's highest navigable lake and explore traditional villages on floating islands.
We learn about the customs and cultures of the people from the largest lake on the continent before heading through the Andes to the capital of the Inca Empire.
We learn of the ancient and colonial past in this wondrous city. From here, we head up into the high Andes to trek to a mountain made famous for its rainbow colors.
We head into a valley that remained hidden from colonial disruption, where culture has transcended time and ancient ruins are still ingrained into daily lives.
Join us as we explore Peru, Lake Titicaca, Cusco, Rainbow Mountain, and the Sacred Valley.
We continue from our previous journey in Bolivia, traveling from La Paz to Isla del Sol, where we celebrated a surprise engagement.
We're gonna make it.
Alright, this is what we are arriving. Hold on. I'm gonna put my bag. Hold on. ¿Cómo te llamas? Marcos. Shane. Mucho gusto.
I think Chicky's pretty excited. Going in a rickshaw.
So excited to go to bed.
Yeah, it's been a big day, honestly. The best part of it is that the Peruvian border was shut, the immigration was shut, so we ended up going straight through without stamping our passports. So we need to change our plans tomorrow and get into the port. So we need to sign in for immigration tomorrow. Here we go, rickshaw time. Vámonos, Marcos!
Today is something we were really looking forward to. We're heading out to the Uros Islands, which are the floating reed islands. So we're going to explore those and part of the Peruvian side of Lake Titicaca. Alright, here we go. First step on the Uros floating islands. Whoa! It's kind of like a mattress. It's our first island here. These people speak the Aymara language. And the next island, I believe, they speak Quechua, which is kind of interesting. So we have two different languages here on the islands.
We witnessed a demonstration of how the floating islands are constructed.
At night, here it's very cold. It's like 20 degrees Celsius below zero. What? They don't have heaters. They don't have fire, no, to warm up. So they sleep in one room, in one bed, everybody. Parents, children, grandparents. So this is the way how they warm up. And he and his wife, no privacy. That's why he called romantic.
So this is what happens when they want to leave the family.
So if some family don't want to work with the rest, this leader cut off the island in two.
They float away.
Push away.
Wow.
Come the spirit taja. Comes up the spirit taja.
Baby.
Aquí está, amigos, la rana gigante. We have a giant frog like this big.
Delicioso.
Part of their food. Now they eat few of them because it's almost extinct. It's about 2 kilo weight. That means like 1 or 2 kilo meat, no? It is our exotic species, frog like this big.
Wow.
Then they get fish with nets. This is hunting birds, collecting eggs. Also the romantic taxi.
The romantic taxi.
You buy one of these, you buy her story, no? Yeah, she doesn't know how to ride, so she doesn't ride. No? How hard looks that? Huh? It's 1 month job.
Look at that. La Reina. So Miranda and I have decided to stay here and join the people of the Uros Islands, so maybe you'll hear back from us in 20 years, who knows. The president has told us that this is our casa now, this is where Miranda and I live. I have a feeling someone else already lives here. Although they did say that everybody shares the houses, so it makes sense. You look cool. So we've bought some of these artisan they're pillow covers, actually. These guys have really struggled since COVID because they completely depend on the tourism industry. And then, of course, we've had a lot of the political and social conflicts in the last few months, which has meant that they've really suffered. They've had to send their children off to other parts of the country, into cities where they've unfortunately suffered things like discrimination due to the fact that they don't really speak good Spanish. A lot of these islands here, as I mentioned before, only speak the Aymara and the Quechua languages. So it's kind of nice to help out the community and also get something really cool in return. So really appreciate this sort of stuff, and it's cool to learn a bit more about their culture and their lifestyle. These islands sit about 4 meters above the water level, and they're about 2 meters thick. So it is literally floating cork. The history of the people on these floating islands goes back before the people of Tiwanaku. That's the civilization that existed at around about 800 AD. And when those people came here, they started recruiting the local villages and taking over them. So these people were forced out onto Lake Titicaca. Now, at this stage, they didn't know how to build those floating islands, so they actually built the floating boats and lived on the boats initially. And over time, they were able to figure out how the root systems of these reeds here were able to float above the water, and they could interconnect them, interweave them into the islands that you see today here. Hundreds of years later, they had the Inca people that pretty much inhabited the areas around the lake here, and the Inca people kind of left them to their own devices and traded back and forth with them. And they lived kind of happily like that until the Spanish arrived in the 1500s and unfortunately took them away and enslaved them to work in the mines like Potosi out in Bolivia, worked them to death unfortunately, and almost meant the end of their peoples, basically. That and the fact that they brought along smallpox and other diseases as well that wiped out huge amounts of the population. It's a sad story that continues up until today, and populations are starting to decline. One of the reasons is the fact that all of their resources like fish and, as I was saying before, one of the rare endangered frog species here are declining themselves, and they no longer have the resources to sustain larger communities. So each generation is getting smaller and smaller. Even 1 generation ago or 2 generations ago, they were having 6 and 7 children, 13 or 14 children a generation before that. Now it's 1 or 2. And you know, you can say that you see this throughout the world, but it's definitely more concentrated in these vulnerable communities, that's for sure. This is our guide, Fausto, here.
Hi.
Why don't you say hi in Amara?
Kamisaraki.
Kamisaraki, and you respond with?
Waliki.
Waliki. Not Waikiki, because that means...
Waikiki, push in the water.
It's push in the water. Most of the information I give you today is going to be from this guy here, so I need to give him full credit, okay? This guy knows his stuff.
Welcome to Lake Titicaca, and thank you for being here, amigos.
We're traveling on one of the traditional boats known as the Tanka. The locals now call it the Mercedes-Benz. So we're going to take a cruise on Lake Titicaca in our local Mercedes-Benz. So we are on Isla Tequile, or Tequile Islands. We are going to do some hiking today on this island and end up having lunch on the other side of the island. But this is all part of a UNESCO World Heritage Area, so all the islands here in Lake Titicaca are protected. And something unique about this island is the type of clothing and the hats that the people wear here. One really unique thing is the fact that the men actually knit their own hats, which in Latin culture doesn't usually happen. It's usually the women doing the knitting. But the hats determine their relationship status, so different colored hats will mean different things depending on whether or not you're available, or if you're taken, or maybe even if you're widowed as well. So all of these villages are self-sufficient. They're planting here potatoes, corn, and beans. And the walls here, these walls are 3,000 years old. Now, obviously not in the same position because they fall down with gravity, but they are the exact same stones that the original inhabitants of the island used. And they actually retain the heat. So overnight, when it gets cold below freezing, they can actually keep the crops nice and warm.
So my friends, UNESCO recognized 2008, organized in United States, Sonia's project, invite whole South America people who make this just for know who is the best. The winners, yeah, is these people. Ellos son los ganadores. Do you know this plant? Cantuta, yeah, Peruvian national flower. Look at this. When I cut it like this, looks like a little hearts. Look. Have you seen? So my friends, that's the reason make this kind of hats. After 5 years old, the boy used to the single boy hat. This hat is the lazy boy. So original hat was very compacted. Throw in water, keep 5 minutes inside. Never comes outside. 16, 15, 18 years old, they start to engage. But wedding will be later 5, later 10 years later. Ceremony of this wedding is whole week, 7 days fiesta.
Yes, 10 skirts.
10 skirts.
¿No te hace calor? No, she doesn't feel warm.
¿Tiene significado?
¿Qué significa? It means the beauty, los colores, la naturaleza, means Mother Nature. This is what they mean. When get married, must wear 30 skirts.
30, so that's 10.
Alcanzar a los esposos, dice.
So 3 times the size of that.
Tired.
From the village, we walked to the far end of the island, where we took a boat back to the city of Puno.
The Plaza de Armas in Puno, and later tonight we'll be catching an overnight bus to Cusco, getting us there very early in the morning at 6 a.m.
So I don't want to take a direct photo of it, but you can see behind me there, they've got fortifications in front of the police station here, made up of sandbags, and that's most likely due to the recent social and political protests that's been going on in Peru. So just in case there's anything that flares up, I suppose they require that for their own protection. I haven't seen that before, fortifications in the middle of a town.
In the evening, we were recommended a traditional restaurant known as Balcones de Puno, where we could witness traditional dances from throughout the region.
The initial dances showed a coming together of indigenous cultures being influenced heavily by the Spanish culture after centuries of integration.
Traditional Andean dances highlight the culture of the surrounding regions celebrated by the lake and highland communities with strong indigenous roots.
In a dance dating back to the 1500s, masked devils performed Diablada Puneña, which is performed in Puno during La Candelaria festival. The winged dancers represent the Archangel Michael, with the dance meant to portray the never-ending struggle between good and evil. The influence of Catholicism can be seen in many aspects of Peruvian culture and performances.
This is heavily contrasted with the more traditional styles, as the struggles between good and evil have always been framed as a struggle between Christianity and indigenous beliefs by colonizing powers. It's only in more recent years that an acceptance and national level of pride for indigenous culture has become valued for its uniqueness and importance.
The varying styles and coming together of cultures is what makes Peru such a rich and unique place. Watching these dances from this region alone really showcases that.
So that was a really cool experience. That's the Balcones de Puno. It's the only place in town where they have live music, well not live music, but live dancing in town and traditional food. Now we've got the long bus ride ahead to Cusco. Buenas noches. So it's 6:30 a.m. in the ancient Incan capital of Cusco. We've arrived bright and early on our overnight bus from Puno. We've got a couple of days here, so we're going to get a good opportunity to explore a little bit before we go off and do the Inca Trail. And we'll actually come back here afterwards because there is a hell of a lot to see. It's such an interesting and beautiful place. Even the original architecture as well is used based on the old Incan ruins. You know, you can see some of these stones that sort of stick out in the walls. It's absolutely amazing. This is one of my favorite cities in South America, so I'm happy to be revisiting this place after 9 years. Best thing about being here bright and early in the morning is that there is basically no one here. This city is usually packed, especially in the center here, like the Plaza de Armas. Look at this. This place is absolutely stunning.
Go inside the San Pedro markets and hopefully get a hot drink.
All the different types of potatoes they have up here. Now she is happy.
So that was the San Pedro markets. We stopped and had a little bit of breakfast. They have a whole section there full of places for breakfast, and I've picked myself up a little bit of a souvenir. It's actually coca leaves, which I know in the Western world have a negative connotation due to the fact that they use them to make cocaine. But here in the Andean countries of Bolivia and Peru, they're actually a cultural staple. That is because it has a lot of nutritional value. It actually is an energizer, and it's a caffeine-free energizer. And for a person like myself who is caffeine sensitive, it's a great alternative to wake yourself up in the morning. But it is a lot different to what we would recognize as the drug cocaine. And the reason why is because the process in which cocaine goes through. Coca itself is kind of like a green tea almost. You know, you can drink it as a tea in the morning, which is the way I like to have it. A lot of people chew it and suck on the leaves throughout the day. And it also helps with altitude sickness as well. So it's a good buy. I think here in Peru especially, we're going to do the Inca Trail in a couple of days, and it's good to be able to adjust not only to the altitude, but as well be able to sort of get a little bit of energy on the trail, because breathing up at these altitudes it's kind of tough. So here at the site of Coricancha, which was the most important Incan sacred site in the whole Incan Empire, which lasted from 1100 AD up until 1532 when the Spanish arrived. Coricancha, if you break down the name, Cori means gold and Cancha means enclosure, and that's exactly what it was. These temples that were here in this sacred site were enclosed in golds. The tops of the walls, the tops of the temples had gold covering them, and all of the temples here were built to align up with the solstice and the stars. They were a very, very important site, and they had the best stonemasons in all of the Incan Empire, which reached from Colombia all the way down to Chile. This being the heart of that Incan Empire here, this had the best people working on this site. Most of this temple was built back in 1438, which was considered the golden age of the Incan Empire. Under the ruler Pachacutec, who was likened to maybe Alexander the Great, he actually redesigned most of Cusco and aligned a lot of the surrounding villages in the region. He designed Cusco in the design or a shape similar to a puma. So the sacred site of Saxo Woman, or the fortress site of Saxo Woman just outside of town, would have been the head of the puma, the center of town the heart, and this site here was actually representing the genitals of the puma, which was considered a very, very sacred part of the body. The way this place was designed too had a lot of things in mind, considering that we have earthquakes here every 300 years or so. They wanted to make sure that all the buildings here were earthquake proof. The way that they would actually interlock the stones and interlace the stones together prevented earthquakes from knocking anything down, and all the walls were built on an inclination. Now, when the Spanish came here, they didn't really know too much about the earthquakes and the earthquake proofing, so they basically stole a lot of the stones from the area and built their Catholic churches on top of the most holy sites in the city. This one being the most holy site, they built right on top of the Temple of the Sun, the most holy spot in the actual complex itself, and they've built a big, massive church on top. They actually built 16 cathedrals within the city, all on top of sacred sites, and that's their way of covering up the Incan culture and ridding the Incan culture. They even plastered all the walls with plaster and murals, which came down during the earthquake in 1950. All of the Spanish architecture had fallen down and crumbled, and it left the remains of the Incan site, the foundations of the temple, because of the way that they were built to basically last. So they were able to rebuild a lot of these spots here during that time and reconstruct a lot of the Incan stuff that had been covered up for hundreds and hundreds of years. A lot of the people say the earthquake was Pachamama's revenge against the Spanish for destroying this sacred site and destroying a lot of the Incan culture. It was the church itself was reconstructed up there in 1974 using new materials, and the whole complex itself was rebuilt between 1998 and 2003.
This one is original. It's this little canal aqueduct.
So it's the original of 5 fountains.
Yes.
Wow. There's a Spanish arch over the Incan wall right there. Thank you, Miguel. This is the man. So the Inca stone's there, and then this is the Spanish, and you were saying they've used mortar, which tends to crack, and it doesn't hold up as well in earthquakes, right?
It was reconstructed after the earthquake, after 1950. Inca is the original.
Still the original, yeah.
Still, yeah. 1538.
They knew. As the only part that was damaged during the earthquake, you can see the interlocking system worked and held in place. Nothing fell down.
Oh, it's gorgeous here. I love it. From Coricancha, we head to the Inca Museum to gain further depth and understanding of Incan history and culture. From its ruins, religious practices including mummification and idols, to the uses of coca leaves, not only for ceremonial practices but also as a source of nutrition.
This is almost like a food trip.
It is, look at that.
So this place, we need to give it a shout out. Cusco. I haven't even tried it yet, but just already a shout out. It looks so good. All right. Buen provecho.
The following morning, we awake before sunrise and make the 3.5-hour drive to the famous Rainbow Mountain Trail.
So I'm here with Juan with Alpaca Expeditions. All the information I get today, I'm stealing from this man here. So he's El Jefe, the boss. And we are currently trekking up to Rainbow Mountain. So we're starting at 4,600
meters.
4,600 meters.
Right to the top, 5,060 meters. 5,060 meters.
That's about 400 meters of elevation.
Yes,
Yeah.
400 meters.
Excellent. Over 17.6 kilometers. Whew. It's hard to breathe.
Hard to breathe at this altitude. Yeah,
Not for Juan, he does it all the time.
yeah,
For me, still hard.
yeah.
Yeah.
The cold wind is always hard to breathe.
And we've got a beautiful day for it, right?
Yes, we
magic.
have a wonderful,
Excellent.
cloudy.
Muchas gracias, Juan.
Pleasure. Welcome to Peru. Thank you.
behind me here we have Apu Ausangati, which is the largest or highest mountain in the Cusco region of 6,370 meters. It contains the glacier, which is actually the 6th largest glacier in all of Peru. Now, this is a very sacred site. In fact, that's what Apu means. It's a very spiritual mountain site here, and the Inca people used to pilgrimage here up to the glacier to retrieve the water, and the water was considered the sacred water. This glacier extended all down through this valley and up to the Rainbow Mountain up here, to the top of the Rainbow Mountain and beyond. But it extended to the top of the Rainbow Mountain up until 1994. That's how fast these glaciers are disappearing due to the climate changing, which is why Rainbow Mountain itself is only a recent tourist destination, because it's only slowly been uncovered over the last 30, 40 years or so. So that's kind of crazy to think about, but you can see the erosion, the smoothness, the roundness of the hills from the glacial carving itself. And you can also see the different elements in the mountain. So the different elements and minerals are what make up the rainbow colored mountain. The red being iron oxide, the yellows up there being a combination of things like sulfur oxide and copper oxide, and the white, that's calcium calcites, because all this area, funnily enough, used to be under the ocean. The reason why we're here up 5,000 meters above sea level is because of tectonic collision, when the two continental plates collided and pushed this region up. Kind of crazy. So right now we are doing part 2, the optional part of the hike, the Red Valley. Okay, one of the coolest things about the Red Valley, not only is it the most beautiful part of this hike up here, but apparently this is the least visited part of the hike. So trekking up to the Rainbow Mountain there, absolutely packed. You had people on horseback, on the back of mules and donkeys. Up here, no one. 90% of the people are pretty much puffed out by the time they do that one there. The day trippers, the people who just want to get the Instagram shot. But everybody says this is the must do. So if you have it in you, God, I'm already popped out. If you have it in you to come up here, do this one. I haven't even seen it yet, and I know that it's worth doing. Right up there. Whew. What do you think, Miranda?
Real.
Yeah. This is not planet Earth. So maybe he's right about the alien conspiracy theories. We went in a spaceship and we didn't know. Mars. They weren't lying. This is the ultimate spot. This is absolutely amazing. It makes the Rainbow Mountain there kind of look like nothing, honestly. And the guy up here was actually saying that less than 10% of people come up here. They all stop up the Rainbow Mountain for the photo shoot, but this is one of the most beautiful places I've seen. This is amazing. The only place I could compare it to is maybe Kauai and Hawaii, the Waimea Canyon with the colors. It's just stunning. Oh my God. And we are right now at 5,069 meters above sea level, so this is the highest we've been on this journey, and I'm feeling a little dizzy. This is our Peruvian feast, so we'll start off with the vegetarian end, which is like some sort of cauliflower omelette, and the vegetarian lomo saltado. Got a hell of a lot of pulp to here. I should have done this before we started eating it. That is the lomo saltado. I mean, if you don't know what that is, it's like the Peruvian version of a stir fry. And yes, this is the size of corn here in Peru. I need to put my hand here in comparison. And then we have some chickens, pollo, arroz. Juan. Hola. Hello, everyone. Alright, so we're at the Mercado Santa Teresa here in Cusco, and I've got myself one of the local artisanal beers. Now, this is a quinoa beer, and for some reason it is green, so let me give this a go. Besides, it tastes like a wheat beer. I like it. So today we're heading to the Sacred Valley and staying tonight at Ollantaytambo. We're going to stop at some ancient ruins along the way. We have our own private driver from Cusco, so it's going to be a very interesting day.
Hola. This is the biggest llama I have ever seen. Look at this guy. So this little one here is called Tika, which means flower in the Quechua language, and apparently she speaks about 6 languages.
Ah, that's right. Distract them with the grass and come in for the pet. There you go. Look at that. It's a trade-off. Very soft.
So these are all the different types of corns they grow here in the Sacred Valley. Quinoa. Okay. ¿Cuántos tipos de maíz aquí? So about 30 different species of corn that they actually farm here. That's awesome.
We're at the site of Pisac here in the Sacred Valley. It's well known for its terraces where they used to grow over 150 different species of corn up here, among other crops and flowers as well. So we're going to explore some of the site and maybe learn a little history about the area. So these separate terraces over here had their own little microclimates, and they're able to grow different types of corn and other vegetables here in each terrace according to its own separate microclimate. So we have an Incan cemetery up here, and there's 5,000 separate tombs located within the rocks up there. You can sort of see the little holes everywhere. Wouldn't notice it just walking past. So Pisac marks almost the start of the Sacred Valley, which goes all the way down to Machu Picchu, pretty much at the end of the Andes, where the Andes meets the rainforest on the eastern side of the mountain range. It's almost 100 kilometers long, or 60 miles long, the actual valley itself, and it is full of ancient Incan sites and townships along the way. So we're going to see lots of little ruins and bits and pieces as we're going around here as well. Whew. So we're heading down now to the most sacred site in Pisac, and you can see it's a very, very steep way down and narrow. God, look at this. We just saw a hummingbird, which we were unable to capture, but the name for hummingbird here is picaflor. So we have some significant sentry towers located around the actual site itself, and these towers were within a sufficient distance to be able to yell messages from one to the other and relay the message all the way back to the heart of the village. So we're heading down to the main area right now, the lugar principal, which is called Intihuatana. So it has something to do with the sun. I couldn't quite get everything that she was explaining to me, but I believe there's a big sundial in the middle, so that's probably got something to do with it. And this was a central location in the Sacred Valley here for contacting places like Cusco, for example, the capital of the Incan Empire, and it was kind of like the midway between that and, say, Machu Picchu and other places within the Sacred Valley. So we have behind us here the Temple of the Sun, similar to what we saw in Coricancha the other day, or what would have been there if the Catholic Church wasn't built on top. But that was one of the main purposes. After the stars and the universe, the sun is the second most important deity. The moon is the third most. So that is the Temple de la Luna. And this was for women, actually. So the women would meditate and pray in the Temple of the Moon, and the men in the Temple of the Sun. This is a really interesting thing about the Incan Empire, is how they were able to distribute water. They were able to create these channels that were fed by natural springs. They would have these well systems throughout the communities and towns, and then the water would be distributed down for irrigation throughout all the area here where they had the agriculture. So below is the township of Pisac, so that's the old town right there where the people lived. Apparently it's shaped like a large bird. I'm not sure exactly how you get that. I don't think you can see it from this angle, in all honesty, but our guide Susan over here was just saying that if you look at it from above, there is a head down one end, and this is kind of like the body of the bird, and that would be the tail down there where the agricultural terraces are. We're going to head right down into the modern town of Pisac now, and we're going to have a quick look through the markets and maybe grab a small bite to eat, and we'll head on our way to another Incan site.
Our guide Susan was actually the partner of Juan, our guide from the day before. He was busy running a similar private tour that day, which just so happened to be in Pisac on the descending walk while we were there. We walked together to the township.
So we are in Plaza de Constitucion here in Pisac. This is the main market square here, and you can see all these little sort of fruit and vegetable stands everywhere, artisan markets. We have the cathedral in the background there. I'm going to explore a little bit. This is a beautiful town and a beautiful day, but I just want to point out something. Right at the top of that mountain up there is where we've just come down from. So it's just like a little dot up there now. You can see some of the old ruins at the top. It's pretty cool. So the Mama Yama is actually the mother of a baby sheep. All right, so what are you drinking there, Miranda?
Chicha with quinoa and strawberry.
Give it a taste. Tell us how it is. It's fermented. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so we're up here in the mountains at a place called Moray, which is an agricultural marvel. It is an agricultural experiment by the Inca people. So the idea is that the stone walls will radiate heat into the crops. So here they could grow 250 different species of plants over 20 different weather climate types in this area here, each level representing a completely different climate. And they had a really sophisticated irrigation system as well that would change direction depending on the equinox. So depending on the time of the year, they could change direction with the irrigation system. It's absolutely genius, though, that this sort of stuff was happening here back in the 1400s. So we're in the town of Ollantaytambo, and we're climbing up the ruins of Ollantaytambo right now, which used to be a military garrison, or kind of like a fortress, if you will, in the Sacred Valley here. They stationed the families of the soldiers here as well. but it was also an astronomical site too. So this mountain across the other side there, it basically lined up with the solstice, the summer solstice, on the 21st of June. There's a face in there that you can actually see in the rocks, and they call it the tumbo. So it's a man carrying a bag. You can kind of see the face a little bit up there. There's a temple up on that side too. I was reading that this is the only completely functioning Inca city still remaining in South America. So the city itself is pretty much obviously different to how it was, but it is where it always was, and the people who inhabit it are still the same people, the Quechua people. That's the main language spoken here. So we're heading right now to the temple of, you guessed it, the sun, once again. But this temple here apparently was supposed to be the largest temple in the Incan Empire, but it was never completed. In fact, there's a lot of these large stones and rocks that had been dragged down from the quarry, and they never quite made it all the way here, so it was never completed. So behind me here you can see the unfinished temple of the sun that I was talking about before. And our guide Susan was saying that the quarry is actually right up there in the hills, so they had to drag those rocks down there, 80 tons each, so it was only partially completed. It would have been really impressive if they did complete it. The way they used to do that is they used to make ropes out of llama skins and llama wool, and they would roll them on rollers, so basically just cut logs and they would roll them down, and they'd have thousands of people just pulling and pulling and pulling to get those giant blocks down to places like this. Really impressive. So the site itself is divided up into different sections. The lower sections there represented the feminine characteristics, and the ones up on the top, including the Temple of the Sun, included the male characteristics, and the whole site itself is shaped like a llama. Now obviously from here we can't see that, but if you were to look from the distance back towards us, we'd be walking along the body of the llama right now. The head would be up here on the top somewhere, and down there in the site you can see kind of almost looks like legs. Need a little bit of imagination here with these sites. So that was really awesome. We just witnessed 2 American kestrels, which are a small type of falcon, feeding their young in a nest just below us down here. It was absolutely amazing. So we are inside one of the colcas right now, which is the Quechua word for where they kept their grains. It's kind of like a silo, if you will. They kept all their corn, even stores of potatoes and things like that as well. This is pretty cool. Cool things about the sites here in the Sacred Valley is that the fact that the Spanish never actually came and conquered these sites, so they weren't destroyed, and they still have working things like the aqueducts, for example, how they're still pumping water throughout the city. It's just absolutely amazing. We're going up now to the Temple of the Condor. This is the condor here, so that is the beak, face, and that's the back of the wing. walking through the old town now, the old village, and you can see just all of these waterways that are built by the Incas, all the foundations that are built by the Incas. It's just absolutely amazing going through here. Obviously a bit of a tourist place now, but still beautiful. So this is what you call chofa de quinoa, which is like a bed of quinoa, mixed quinoa there, and we have our parrilla de la alpaca, which is alpaca grilled. And Miranda, you've got the vegetarian version, is that right?
I've got
con queso.
Quinoa with some cheese and just like mixed.
Cool. Nuestro sopa.
Join us on our next epic adventure as we commence the 4-day hike on the world-famous Inca Trail to Machu Picchu.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed our content, please like and subscribe.
And we'd love if you could leave us a comment letting us know what you've enjoyed or what you'd like to see more of.
And help us grow our channel. Become part of the Global Travel Stories family by sharing with friends, family, or anyone you think would enjoy our content. Thanks, guys.